Welcome to making felt monsters. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can make felt monsters with your students, depending on the age. It can be any age level. These are kind of fun. You will find them on Etsy, Pinterest. People are making and selling them. They're just kind of fun, a little fun activity for the kids to do. I had attempted to do this with some fourth graders. Back in February, we had already gone through how to do a running stitch and how to do a back stitch and cross stitch, how to do those kind of things, how to make a knot, most importantly. If you've ever taught somebody how to sew, it's painful. What I did is I started with a very big-eyed needle, and they all had the same kind of thick orange thread, so nobody whined about the color. It was just the same color for everybody. So let's get to making our felt monsters. What I started out with to make this really ginormous one, we looked at a lot of different pictures on Google and Pinterest. And in their sketchbooks, the kids drew out body types that they liked, different shapes, eyes, if they liked eyes on eye stalks, if they liked teeth or legs or hands. And I was telling them that they needed to make just a basic, simple shape for the body. And all the other shapes, very simple. Don't complicate it. If you like the zigzag, don't do 20 million of them, because we kind of sort of get carried away. We also looked at different kinds of eye shapes and how they can do eyes, whether it's felt on top of felt or like with buttons. And I bought a plethora of buttons, plus I had a pretty interesting collection already, or beads. You know, there are so many different things that you can use, you know, pipe cleaners if you want to add antennas and things like that. So there's lots to do. And then also look at mouths, how that can be a shape. Like this one starting out with a basic shape and then adding in triangles for teeth or tongues or just stitching in a mouth. So there's lots of different ways that you can attack this. I realized once we were quarantined, I brought this home to finish it up, and I was kind of videoing how I was going to put this all together, and we did one piece at a time, and I cut out the shapes and everything, and I was sewing each piece on, and my kids would not be able to make it through it, and then having to sew all the way around. This is an 8x12 piece of felt. So that's a standard size of felt, 8x12. And we did the whole shebang. So actually I took 8x11 piece of paper, so we had a little bit of extra cut off so that we could use for scrap. And I realized that that was just way too much, that it would be faster to glue things on and not sew every single thing on, kind of like what I did with the teeth and the white of this eye here, than it is to sew every single thing back on. So that was round 2. I cut this piece out and I glued on after, and then I sewed the buttons on, and then I just glued these little pieces on. I did the back stitch to make the mouth, and I stitched this all together except for the top, and then I stuffed it. So let me show you how we're going to make our felt monster. So for the half size, you need a piece of paper that is 6x8, because we're going to just take our piece of felt and fold it in half, like so. And then I talked to the kids, do you want a wide monster or do you want a tall monster? It can be whatever you want. And we looked at, they took out their sketches and looked at what they wanted to do. I want to do this little fun guy. He looks kind of funny. And I can always use all my space for the body and add these 2 pieces on at the top with extra pieces of felt. Okay? So I'm going to take my paper first And since I'm going to make this symmetrical, I'm going to take my 8x6 and fold it in half. And I'm going to do the symmetrical trick. And I want to use all my space. So where's my weird little guy? There he is. So my weird little guy, I'm going to leave my antenna out. He's just going to be a fun, let's see, let's get this part down here first. Alright, so I'm going to draw my body. And I'm going to take my paper scissors. Because I realize, having not been a fabric person like my friend Tammy Clark, there's a big difference between paper scissors and fabric scissors. And boy howdy, so I had bought some good scissors for this project. And I was terrified for the kids to use them because they were so sharp. Alright, so here is my body. So now I want to go ahead and get in my design for my eye. It does not have to be symmetrical. We just wanted the body to be symmetrical. So I think I want, it doesn't have to be symmetrical. So let's go, oh, that's too low. The main reason, sorry you're wiggling, the main reason why they are drawing on this first, because we're going to cut out this shape, because there's nothing worse than having 100 pieces of felt and they have a couple of marker shapes on there and then they decided I didn't like that. So we're using this space, and then I'm just gonna, there's his mouth, okay? And I'll do the antennas with an additional piece of scrap. So, like I said, here's my eye, and I think what I'll do is I'll just make this U shape, and then we'll cut those out of my other pieces of scrap. So let's move this over to the side, and let's get our main body cut out. So here's my 8x12. I'm going to fold it in half. And I'm going to put my template on top. Now here's where you're going to need a couple of pins. Yeah, I know, trusted small children with some pins, but you know, I do that sometime. So what we did is we pinned our template. You had to make sure that it was all on the felt. And get that all pinned. There we go. Now, next is taking a Sharpie. And I know you're going, oh yeah, Sharpie. Taking a Sharpie, and we're going to trace our shape. And like I tell my kids, the pencil or the Sharpie side that we really don't want to see, that's the back side. That's where the glue goes. Plus, as we cut this out, we want to mainly kind of cut off the Sharpie line. Let me get this all traced here. Okay. So, got that traced. Now I can take that off. And I'm going to keep that, put that off to the side. Now, I'm going to take a pin. I'm going to make sure these little guys stay together while I cut, because you know sometimes they tend to wiggle. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to take my good scissors and hold my felt together, and yeah, it kind of went right to the edges, so I can adjust my design a little bit as we go. And since it's symmetrical, you know, I can turn my Sharpie side over, and it's not going to matter, and the other side's nice and clean as well. Okay, so let's round this guy a little bit. And that would be Scooter. If you hear barking, it's usually Scooter. Okay, so now I have my two monster pieces. Aha. Thank you, Scooter. Because I'm not refilming this. We're going with it. So y'all are just going to have to listen to Scooter. So I'm going to turn over my Sharpie side. Let's get both of them together again. There we go. So the little bit of Sharpie that I did see is going to be right there on the inside. Alright. So I'm going to take the bottom piece and kind of put it over here to the side and go back to our template. So for our template, this is where, you know, I had that brainstorm where if they want a shape, they have to draw it on their monster, make sure it fits, and then they have to be happy with that. So if I have some scraps, not big enough. If I have some scraps, okay. So I'm going to take my scrap. Let's move this guy out of the way. And don't you hate it when they put it right in the middle and then they waste all this? So I was like, you don't get on Miss Miller's nerves. Take your template and put it all the way. It's got to touch edges. Touch edges of your felt. Take your Sharpie. Trace that puppy. Okay. And then you're going to keep doing that, and then I'm going to cut out this one, and that's the base of my eye, and then go to cut out my next U shape. Okay. All right. There he is. Very melancholy. Very cool colors, all right. So I've got that big U. I'm going to go to the next one. Now, you know, of course it depends on what you're doing with your eyes. So I'll speed up this portion of the process so that I don't put you to sleep. This is what I got at Amazon. You can get a wide variety of colors. Let's go for some pale yellow. Put it right there. Ah! You know, everybody just went, no. Okay. Sharpie. I turned it over so that I don't have that wonkiness. And I think what I'll do for that center dot is do a button. Now in my classroom I have a plethora of scraps and it's not necessarily just felt. It can be just felt, you know, but if you wanted to put maybe on the back of this guy, he's got a big flowered tush. I don't know. But you can use a lot of different materials. You don't have to limit yourself. Alright, so here we are. Oh, he's lovely. And then I've got some buttons. Here they are. I just bought a few. Something fun. Ooh. I only bought a few buttons home. How about just black? There you go. Okay. Now, so what I learned previously was I spot glued the edges here, glued that down, and then I sewed my buttons to the purple and the top layer. So that's what I'm going to do here. And if you have not already seen the new version of Aleene's Tacky Glue, look, you store it standing up so that you're not waiting 3 days and a half to get your glue. So let me put my button to the side. So there is his eye. Okay, so now I need to sew on my button. So I'm going to take a piece of thread. Let's take this needle. Now, the needles that hello, where's my, there you are. It's got a decent eye to it because you are using that floss thread to thread your needle. I have Sharpie all over my fingers, so it looks like I haven't washed my hands. And I use the sawing technique to thread my needle, and there's always one, isn't there? And we're going to thread our needle. There we go. And since it's just a small button, show the kids how to make a knot. Now I can do it, I think I want to do it down so it's rounded at the top. So here's my back. So I'm going to take my needle and I got to figure out where I want my pupil. I'm going to put it over to the side a little bit. So I've got to go through all that felt. Okay, so got my needle on, needle through, so sew on your button. This one has some really interesting buttons, and so did this one. This one had some printed buttons, so there's lots of different things that you can choose for layering for your eyes. So got my eyeball sewn on there. Now I'm going to knot it, and the way I showed my kids is to pick up a little bit of your felt. I'm kind of going underneath some of the thread. Oop, don't lose the tail. Now I want to pull it and I want to leave a loop so that I can put my needle back through the loop. And I'm going to do that twice. I'm going to try to do it close to the same area. Since I have so much stuff, so many layers here, it's okay if I go through the felt. So there's my loop. I'm going to go through and pull that loop so I have my knot. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, I want to make my mouth. I'm still pondering how I'm going to do this top piece for kind of like the eyebrow. I might improvise a little bit with some felt. I also need to make these two little stalks up there with some scrap. So, to make the mouth, since I want it to be kind of a funny looking mouth, I am going to kind of draw it lightly in pencil. Alright, and I'm going to take my thread, and I want to make it doubly thick, just so, because this is a single thickness here, so I think he's more grumpy. So this is a nice, hey, cute little monster, and not so much. So Mr. Not So Much here, we're going to double up his thread. So, let me get that started. Knot goes on the back. So I'm going to start on my pencil line here. There we go. And I'm going to go around and kind of go ahead. So I went around the back There's my lovely knot. So I'm going to do a back stitch, and I'm going to go back into that hole I've already made. So I'm going to go forward. I'm just going to follow my pencil. And with these big curves, you know, you can't go too far with your lines, otherwise it gets more like a zigzag. So you can kind of adapt that as you go. So teaching them back stitching. It's a lot of fun to kind of get the groove of it. You know, if I think that that's not enough line, I can always go back and make it thicker. Oops. I'm going to go around the edge here. And then I'm going to turn over here to the back, and I need to make a knot. So I'm going to grab a little bit of felt, go underneath my thread, and there's my loop. So I'm going to go through the loop and pull, and I usually do that twice. Oops. Get my loop there. There. Okay. Voila. Oh, definitely disgruntled. Okay, well I tried sewing and I realized, you know, that's kind of dumb because that's 4 layers of felt. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change my design, and I'm just going to make a nice thick eyebrow that goes across. Okay, so I'm going to use my template again because I did not throw that away. And let's just make some, maybe some fun eyebrow. Okay, and we'll cut that out. Well, there you go. Well, that looks kind of fun. That way it also covers up all my stabbing. Alright, well that is drying. Something else that's very important, where to put their names. I mean, how are you supposed to put their name on there? The first one I tried to stitch my initials. You know that's going to be a hot mess because that's a hot mess. So, I thought about it and I thought, you know, we got plenty of scraps. So we can just make a little, you know, since I was doing polka dots on him, I just took a piece of felt, I put my name on it in 2020. You can put your teacher code on there, okay? So you can have them draw it out on their sketchbook, and I'm just going to put I'll make a heart, it'll go on his tushy. It won't say mom. Year of the COVID. Okay, and let's see. All my eyeballs drawn. Let's make sure we get them on the right size. Okay, so that's the front. So this is the back. Well, and there's going to be, since that's where it fell over. Okay. Now, the last step that we're going to do is sewing our guy together. Of course, you know, oh, I forgot about his eye stalks. Okay, I totally forgot in our design that we wanted eye stalks. Well, not eye stalks, or some kind of antenna. So I'm going to use some of this green and that purple fuchsia again. So since I'm making 2 of them, I'm just going to take my pieces of felt. Do I want to make them the same? Nah. And a thin one, we're going to put those in between there. And I'm going to make these 2 the same. Guess I need to make 4, don't I? I could sandwich them. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Who'd have thunk it? Yep. Okay, so we're going to move Mr. Face over here, and we're going to work on our lovely antennae. Now, get all this other stuff out of the way. Let's see what he's going to look like. There we go. Alright, so now I know where all my pieces and parts are going to go. I'm going to pin him together, and I'm going to glue those guys down. Alright, so I'll be right back. I'm getting them pinned, and now I'm going to glue these guys inside. Now, here's the key. I'm going to make sure that my glue, get the pin out of my mouth, is below where I'm going to sew. Okay, so there's a one. And that way I can catch those in my thread as I sew that around. Make sure that that's out of the way. Okay, now let's put a pin up here. And now I'm going to let that hold together a little bit. So I'm going to leave this bottom part is where I'm going to stuff at. Okay, and for stuffing you can use like your Walmart bags, regular polyfill. This is some insulation that HelloFresh sent, and I kept that for some reason. I don't know why, you know, because you think it's going to be useful because it's fibers, but it's also got like some twigs and things in them. I don't know what it is. So we'll get into the sewing part of getting your monster put all together. And got a really long piece of thread here. I'm going to pick this dark color because that's just what was on hand. So since I'm going to leave this part open, I'm going to start down here and let those guys kind of dry a little bit. If you want to hide your knot, like I did here, you don't see my knots because I taught myself a sneaky thing and sewed it on the inside. On my first one, no knots on the front, but you know, a couple of knots here on the back. So you decide how you want your knottage to go, and I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to hide my knot inside. So there's my little name tag. You know, and you can put things on the back too. So if you need polka dots or whatever. So I'm going to open this up a little bit, and I'm going to put in my needle. And now my knot is going to be on the inside. And I'm just going to go ahead and start moving around my monster. Okay, so I made it around the bend, so I can take out my pins. And as I was sewing, you know, of course it's a little difficult to get those glued parts that are in there. Recommend anything that's added, make it kind of longer and glue it up in there so that as you get near this edge, you're not going through glue. Okay? And, you know, I'm going to see, because I'm doing this rapidly, I'm not clamping this down. This needs more time to dry, which is just another reason why, you know, if you got the time, sew it on there. If not, do the gluing. Okay, so time to stuff. I can always re-glue that later. I'm going to use this HelloFresh fibery stuff. It's just cottony fibers and twigs. I don't really know what the heck it is, but there you go. So, I know a big thing with kids is how much stuff can I stuff in there. So, I am going to put in a little bit at a time. Don't want to overstuff it so it's all, you know, pooching out over there. Okay, so now I've got him stuffed. I learned from a previous mistake, so I'm going to pin him shut. because there's always those mistakes of, well, shoot, I didn't hold it closed good enough. The edges didn't line up. So here I've got my edges lined up. Kind of pinched it closed there. All right. So, got some gradu there on the table, but that's okay. So I've stopped here, and now I will finish sewing our little felt monster closed. Okay, so now we've come back to the end where we started our knot. So see, I've got a gap here. So I'm going to go into this piece, this side of the felt. Ta-da! Alright, and I am going to grab a piece of that felt and my thread there. That's a bit much. Oh well. And let's see. Let's get our loop. Here's our loop. Gonna go through the loop. We're making a knot inside. Here's one. I'm just gonna try and go in the same spot. There we go. And there's my second loop. And that way I've hid my knots. Get our pins out. You know, and I think gonna add a little more glue to my underside here and clamp it down. I might trim these up or bedazzle them a little bit. But there is your little felt monster. Pretty neat. Recycle some stuff, have some fun. Here they all are. And enjoy the rest of your conference.